All right. How y'all doing out there? It's your friendly neighborhood rambling man. And I'm doing this video because I just watched Avengers Endgame for the very first time. I didn't go see it in theaters because I wanted to wait till I could watch it at home. And I'm glad that I did. This movie was outstanding. I'm just going to hit on a few key points about it to talk about because this movie is 3 hours long, 3.5 hours long, something like that. And 3 hours long, I think it was. And this movie, I could be here for an hour talking about the movie point by point. But what I will say is, I thought this movie, going into it, I thought this could be the biggest letdown since Game of Thrones for me, because time travel to me has been overdone in movies, and it's been used in the most stupid ways in movies, and is a MacGuffin plot device. And I just thought, man, this could be the cheesiest ending to the Marvel universe, but I'm glad the Russo brothers proved me wrong, because the way they did the time travel for this movie makes sense, and it's something that I've been wanting to see a movie that uses time travel do, and it's to use actual string theory and not just this whole tired trope of you go back in time, you change the course of events, and you change you change who you are, or you, it it relies too heavy on the grandfather paradox type thing. Rather, in this movie, that it and Bruce even says this in the movie and sets it up that because they have this whole funny freaking thing about um talking about how do you, someone says, if you go back in time and change, you can't change anything because it's already set, and blah 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 blah. And Bruce asks him, keep in mind Bruce is in Hulk mode full time now, but I'll get to that in a minute. But how do you know that? Based on what? Star Trek, Star Wars, and they go into the plethora of movies and TV shows that have done it, and Hulk's just like so wrong and so not how it works. He explains basically that once you go back in time, the time the time you land in is now your future, and the time you come from is your past. So that cannot change. Your past cannot change. It doesn't break any laws of physics, because your past is your past, and the past that you come from is your past. It doesn't create a new timeline for the universe. It just creates a new timeline for you. Essentially, that's what I got out of it, which I thought was really freaking cool. But anyway, I thought that they started off the movie with a gut punch. Then they lay you out. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. They start out with a gut punch, starting the movie off with Hawkeye and what happens to him, because we didn't see that in Infinity War. And then they move on to a few face punches, you know, showing how the Avengers are broken and beaten, and but they're not out yet. And then the uppercut, the knockout punch comes with realizing that Thanos has actually won because he's destroyed the Infinity Stones. There is no way to undo this. After Cap's speeches, after everybody's hope against hope, it's done. It's over. There is no hope. They have to live with this. It's a knockout punch for me. It's the lowest of the low point for the Avengers. And it was beautifully, masterfully done. I fucking love the Russo brothers for this. Flat, when we do a time jump, 5 years. Beautifully done. You get in universe at 5 years. They've lived with this for 5 years. And then out of nowhere comes Scott Lang. Well, not out of nowhere. Remember, Scott Lang's been trapped in the quantum universe because he got stuck there in an end credit scene where they were doing Hank Pym, his daughter, and Scott Lang were doing those experiments. And if you remember the end credit scene, he went to the quantum universe, and all we got was a scene of dust and him calling out, "Is anybody there?" So Scott Lang comes in, and he is he's the new shred of hope. That whoa, he's back. He gives a shred of hope to the Avengers because Cap and freaking Natasha, they're you when that scene happens, man, their jaws are on the floor, and it's beautifully done, beautifully shot, and as an audience member, it brings you're like, oh shit, things are about to change, the gears are about to turn, the gears are about to shift, is what I should have said. Anyway, so they come up with this. He tells them his plan. He's got enough Pym particle to get the entire team back to the future. Wow, to do the time travel deal. But they need one man to pull it off. Tony Stark. And I think what I love about Tony Stark in this movie is the fact that you get to see that shrivel of hope that he left the Iron Man behind, and he became a person. He became a normal human being like you or I. I mean, he became a husband and a father. I mean, he has a 5-year-old daughter. I mean, wow. And to do a real master job to show him that he became better than his father, that he became a father to his daughter. And man, even watching that, I feel, and it gives me hope at the same time. It pulls at the heartstrings because shit's about to get fucked up. Because there's a good possibility that Tony may not make it out of this, just because that has been set up. But and throughout the course of the movie, that little thread is played on throughout the entire course of the movie, even to the point of when they're back at time. At one point, he runs across his father, Howard, when they're trying to get one of the stones and some Pym particle, and he's discussing parenthood with his father. And I think Tony understands his father on a deeper level now, and he gets kind of some sort of closure with it. And you could see it in the character that he's kind of got some, okay, my life is turned a corner now. I can go forward. But anyway, I'm all over the place here because I'm thinking of things that I was thinking of things in order, and now I'm just thinking of things as they pop into my head. So bear with me. But yeah, they go to Tony. They try to get him on board with this idea. And he says he can't. He's a family man. He's going to try and move forward, do the best he can. The rest of them should too. It's a bonehead idea. But we all know Tony solves the problem. Because we all know Tony can't sleep unless he solves the problem. So, anyway. So they go to the second best guy for the job, which is Bruce Banner. Now, for the past 5 years, Bruce has been Hulk. Bruce has been Bruce, but hulked out. So basically, the way they leveled this with what's happened is basically Bruce came to terms with the Hulk. Him and the Hulk became one. So the trade-off was he got the Hulk strength, but he remained hulked out, but he got to be himself. So and you get to see the interaction he has with regular people, and it's cool. He's a professor. And so he tells the Avengers that he's going to help with it. or at least the best he can. And then basically their idea is to go back in time at different points, get the Infinity Stones, bring them back to the present, and do the snap. Well, shenanigans ensue because they only have so much Pym particle, right? To travel back in time for people to go back and then forward for a round trip. So they divided it up into three teams, because I think it was Natasha that said that, if you do this, if you think about it, you don't really only have to do 3 trips, because if you pick the right dates, 3 of the stones are in New York City, 2 of the stones are in the same general area of the universe. So that's what they do. They divide up into teams and go to 3 different points in history with the plan to meet back up in the present. Which I thought was a great plan. Great storytelling. And it's a great way to move the story forward. Now, up until this point, it does kind of drag a little bit. I mean, well, not up to this point, but after this point, it kind of drags a little bit because there gets into a little too much detail sometimes. But for me, I kind of ran with it because I enjoy detail. But yeah, you got, so basically the teams where you had Tony, Cap, and Scott going back in time to New York, to the time of Avengers 1. Where all 3 stones are in New York City. The Time Stone, the Space Stone, and what was the other stone? The Time Stone, the Tesseract, and the stone powering Loki's staff, basically. Anyway. Then you have Thor going after the stone that was trapped within Jane Foster. So the time of the time of Thor Dark World, which that's a funny part between him and Rocket, and Thor gets to see his mom again, and they get to have a conversation, which was, I thought, beautifully done, and I thought kind of gave the character some resolution that he couldn't have got otherwise. And he got Mjolnir back. He got Mjolnir back. But yeah, getting back to Tony and Cap and Scott, they get into New York. Oh yeah, it was Hulk, Scott, Tony, and Cap. Hulk and Scott. Hulk goes after the Time Stone, and then Tony, Cap, and Scott go after the Tesseract and the staff. And I thought that was really well done, because it used, I want to say it used some old footage, but with some new footage in the same type of setting. And it gives us a different perspective of what happened in that particular area. It was great. I fucking love it. More depth into the universe. I love it. But they fail. They didn't get it because one thing led to another, and they lost both the Tesseract and the staff. Or wait, no, they lost the Tesseract, I think. Yeah, they lost the Tesseract. The staff they got. So they get that to Scott, and they decide to use the last of the Pym particle that Tony and Cap have to go further back in time to get the Tesseract with some more Pym particle. So they go back to the bunker that was featured in The Winter Soldier. And it was a great callback to The Winter Soldier. So, and then you got a young Hank Pym, you got Howard Stark, and this is where Steve runs across Peggy again for the first time. They don't interact, but he sees her through a window, and it's at this point that I realize that this doesn't end for Cap any other way but him back with Peggy. Plain and simple, because that's what this is alluding to. As a writer and a lover of story, that's the only way that ends. And I think that's why they put that there. It's foreshadowing what's going to happen. But anyway, that portion's done. Both have they have the stones from the Avengers era. The Dark World era, they have Thor got his stone, got Mjolnir back. He got his confidence back. And then the third team, which was a team of Rhodey, Nebula, Hawkeye, Black Widow. Hawkeye, Black Widow drop Nebula and Rhodey off on the planet from Guardians 1. They're waiting on Star-Lord to come and show them where the Infinity Stone that Ronan was after was hidden. And then this is also where Thanos of the past learns about what's going on. And this sets up the final battle, because now Thanos has information from Nebula of the future, because apparently the Nebula of the future and the Nebula of the past present are connected through her neural network, and he can see. Anyway, I thought it was I thought it was plausible, but it was kind of a stretch. But whatever. I'll go with it. I'll buy it. Anyway, the two Nebulas switch. Rhodey and Nebula, they go back to the future. And then the part I was dreading, because unfortunately I couldn't avoid all spoilers. I knew this part was coming. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I knew this part was coming because damn Facebook. Hawkeye and Black Widow go after the Soul Stone, which we all know, if you watch Infinity War, you know you can't get the Soul Stone without sacrificing something you love. And they run across Red Skull. It's always good to see Red Skull. It's funny. But the realization that they had to sacrifice something they love is hits them. They're sitting there talking, and they both realize, okay, we know who it's got to be. Natasha thinks it's got to be her. Clint thinks it's got to be him. Now, keep in mind that Clint, well, I haven't said this, but Clint has done some pretty distasteful things since his family disappeared, and they show all this in the movie. I didn't want to hit this because I don't want to go tell you the entire story, because I'll be here for 3 hours. But I thought it was well done that they, even in the end, they both are fighting to see who can kill themselves. It was well done. And then just when you think Clint is going to be the one, he jumps off. Black Widow, Natasha, she's going to jump off the cliff. Clint knocks her ass back with a arrow. She's on the ground looking up. He goes, runs, jumps off the cliff. She jumps up. She goes, jumps over the cliff, hooks a freaking grapple line on him, fires the grapple up into the cliff. It catches him. He catches her, and then all of a sudden, she's like, "Let me go. It's okay." She kicks off and she falls to her death. It was beautifully done. It had fun. It had sorrow. It had hope as well. At the end, you see Clint in that same spot where Thanos was in Infinity War, and he's on his knees and he's holding in his hand the Infinity Stone, and you're right there. You feel for him. You know what they've lost, and so they all come back together, and for the third and final act, they don't realize that Nebula has been switched with the more loyal to Thanos Nebula, the younger Nebula, so to speak. So Nebula, she's gonna bring Thanos in to this timeline because he's waiting. He comes in with his ship. They don't know this yet, but anyway, while Tony is devising a gauntlet, an Iron Man gauntlet for the stones to do the snap, they're bickering about who should do the snap. Thor thinks it should be him, and it's really well acted, and it plays on all sorts of emotions. And I gotta admit, I was right there on the edge of my seat. And everybody's like, "Let's discuss this. Let's discuss this." And I thought one funny point is, what do I have running through my veins? Thunder, or lightning. I'm the only one that can survive this. And then Banner is like, no. Basically, it's no worse than, it's all essentially gamma radiation. I'm made of gamma radiation. I was made for this. So it's gotta be me. Anyway, without hesitation, Hulk, this scene with Hulk putting on the gauntlet, doing the snap, God, it was you're like, yes. And the thing is, it was shot to the point of you didn't know if it worked. You didn't know what happened. I mean, because while you've got the whole him powering up and getting ready to snap, you've got Thanos coming in through the time portal, flying out through the window, getting ready to lay waste to the Avengers compound. You've got you have no idea if it worked or not. It's yes, it snapped, and what happened? You know, Banner gets kind of burned and everything like Thanos did. And but he's alive and okay. And throughout the rest of the movie, his arm is in a sling, presumably healing, hopefully healing. I hope his arm isn't dead, or that's going to be really hard if he ever appears in a future movie. But anyway, then all of a sudden, Clint is looking at his phone on the counter, and his wife is calling, and that's how they know it worked. Then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. Thanos destroys Avengers facility. The utter chaos is. It takes you from a neutral moment of happiness to fuck this motherfucker. Like, you son of a bitch moment. Anyway, as our heroes are trying to regroup and trying to come up to the surface, you got the core three, Iron Man, Cap, and Thor, looking at Thanos. He's just sitting there waiting for Nebula to bring him the gauntlet. And the whole, they give a spiel. Thor gives a spiel. Cap gives a spiel. Iron Iron Man gives a spiel about how, I really don't care what happens to him at this point. Thor's like, good. I'm glad we're all in agreement. Anyway, they all walk up and they start a fight with him, with Thanos, and all of our heroes are doing their best to bring down Thanos. And Thanos, then it cuts to Thanos saying, you know, everything I've done, it's never been personal, but what I'm about to do to this world, I'm going to really enjoy. And then that's when it cuts to this beam of light, and they beam in Thanos' entire freaking army from all over the universe, I guess. Or maybe they were just on a ship that was hovering above. Anyway, and it's a massive army. It's like way too many for, our like 6-7 heroes to take on themselves. And you're just like, okay, where's the cavalry coming in? And then the cavalry shows up. You see the circles, the mystic circles that Doctor Strange uses, and Peter Parker actually later tells Tony that there's a great bit where he's like, you know that part where I turned to dust on the planet, and I must have passed out because I woke up, and then Strange was like, it's been 5 years, we need to go, they need our help. It's like quick. It was funny, but it explained what happened from their perspective, so we could get on with the rest of the fight. It was great. I love the Russo brothers for that. Another great point for the Russo brothers. But yeah, you get to see T'Challa. You get to see his people from Wakanda. Doctor Strange shows up, which Doctor Strange and Tony have a great interaction where he's like, you saw 14 million different possible ways and only one way out. Tell me this is it. And he's like, well, if I tell you how it happens, it won't happen. And then in that moment, Tony knows something isn't gonna end well for somebody. And anyway, Peter's got the freaking gauntlet with the Infinity Stones on, and he's trying to get it to Scott Lang, who's got the other time machine. Who's got the other time machine? They're trying to get it as far to get the stones back, and and then it gets passed off to. No, wait. I'm sorry. Hawkeye has it. Then it gets passed off to T'Challa. Then it gets passed off to Spider-Man, who hitches a ride on Mjolnir, Valkyrie's Pegasus, and then he gets grounded. And then all of a sudden we see the ship aim all of its weapons up towards the sky, and this light comes. No, you don't see anything yet, and they're all like, "What are they firing at?" And this light comes in, and it's Captain Marvel. She comes in, destroys the ship. Thanos is looking up like, "Oh fuck my life." Captain Marvel comes in, gets her hits in, goes up to Peter, and Peter's on the ground holding the gauntlet like, "Hi, I'm Peter Parker." It's a great scene. And then after this, you get what, it may be, some people may not like it, may think it's, too social justice-y or, too politically correct, whatever, but within the context of what happens in the movie, I dug it. I loved the moment, and I felt in that moment. I really, truly did. Captain Marvel and all the women of the MCU coming together to go into battle. I freaking loved it. To take the gauntlet. And although there is one, I didn't really understand why she was there, and it was Pepper in an Iron Man suit. I mean, I get it. She's been there for ages, but she has no combat experience. Why would you want her on the battlefield? But that's neither here nor there. It was cool that she was there, but regardless, I don't think she should have been there. But just my own personal opinion. Anyway, long story short, oh, another great part of this was right before. I think it was right before this happened. Yeah, it was right before the reveal of that everybody was back with the and Doctor Strange bringing everybody in through the portals. Thor was getting ready to be killed by Thanos, and then all of a sudden you see Mjolnir being picked up, and it gets thrown at Thanos, and then you see Cap getting Mjolnir. It was a great moment. It's a great moment from the comics. It was a powerful moment. It was a yeah moment, and it was great to see Thor and Cap working with Mjolnir and Stormbreaker, and it was a great point where um, Thor's using Mjolnir and then Cap's using Stormbreaker, and they're back to back, and then they turn to each other, and he's like, Thor's like, "You give me that here, give me that one. You take the little one." It was funny. It was a great moment. There was like little moments like this all over the film. It was freaking fantastic. And then the moment everybody's been waiting for 10 years happened. It kind of, honestly, it kind of felt a little underwhelming, a little bit, but it was still good. And looking at it from a objective point of view, it was kind of, the way it was said was kind of pointless because you're on a battlefield, but when you hear, once everybody's come through the portals and they're all standing behind Cap, and Cap's like, you hear Avengers, and then he goes, assemble, like all quiet. I'm like, but it's like, why wouldn't you just say assemble? Because you're on a battlefield. You got to have everybody hear you. But he says it as he calls for Mjolnir. So that was another point. It was badass. But and then the moment the moment that all fans have dreaded, the death of Iron Man, the death of Tony Stark. It was earned, it was deserved, and it was tragic. I mean, right before this, it was like Thanos had the fucking gauntlet again, getting ready to snap. But this time, he wasn't just doing half of all life. He was going to do all life in the universe destroyed, and he was going to try to make it over in his own image. He wanted to be God, basically, which I think goes against his character in the comics, but that's neither here nor there. But anyway, Captain Marvel's the one that stops him from snapping his fingers the first time. And then when he pushes her aside, Tony is picking himself up off the ground, and he looks up at Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange just does this. And that's when Tony puts into motion his fate. Basically, I love the fact that he went in guns blazing. You thought for a split second that Thanos still had the stones, but he didn't. He changed out the gloves. I think what happened was he just scraped the stones off, and I think that was a feature he built into to the gauntlets, because they were Iron Man gauntlets, not the Infinity Gauntlet, that they could change from one gauntlet to another gauntlet, which was cool. Anyway, he comes up. He says, Thanos says, "I am inevitable," and goes to snap, and nothing happens. He's like, and then you see Iron Man and the stones go into place, and he's like, "I am Iron Man." Snap, and then Thanos' army starts to vanish. And then you see Thanos sit down, and he vanishes. And then Thanos, or not Thanos, but then Stark, he sits down. He's gasping for air. Pepper is there to tell Stark that she's there for him and that everything's going to be okay. And he dies on the battlefield, a hero's death. And this is one thing that pisses me off: the fact that they put this in the theater re-release, but they didn't put it in the freaking digital release as anything but a deleted scene. But they should have done it where all the Avengers bow to the death of Tony Stark, showing honor. But I kind of also get why they didn't do it, because the scene that followed this was Tony's. One of the scenes that followed this was Tony's funeral, which was powerful in itself. I gotta admit, I almost cried. I almost teared up myself seeing all the cast, seeing all the loved characters there, paying their final respects to Tony Stark, the man that started it all. Um, but I will say the way they wrapped this up was beautiful. I mean, we got to see Thor passing his crown to Valkyrie. We got to see Cap go into the past to return the Infinity Stones, and then he decides to go back, presumably to the Saturday after he was stuck into the ice, to the to meet Peggy at the club that she's told him to meet him at the end of the first Cap. And he lived out his life with her. And within a short time, we see Cap on a park bench where the Avengers were that sent him back in time in the first place. He's sitting there waiting on them, and he passes the shield off to Falcon, which I don't know why he passes it off to Falcon instead of Bucky, but I'll go with it. I accept it. I mean, it could have been either or. Um, and then that's how it ends. It ends with a flashback of Cap dancing with Peggy, and it wrapped up really beautifully. And then I gotta say, I actually watched to the end of the credits, and the signature, the sign out for all the characters was beautiful. This was another moment where I almost teared up, because I've only ever seen this done one other time in one other movie, and it was Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country. And even then, I almost teared up. But it was beautifully done. Overall, the movie was great. What I'd like to see from here on out, because there's some characters that just really didn't get much to do in this, because this was pretty much a farewell to the starting characters. I mean, from here on out, you're not gonna see Iron Man. You're not gonna see RDJ's Iron Man. You're not gonna see Steve Rogers. You're not gonna see current day Black Widow. You're not gonna see any of the main characters, I don't think. The only ones that you could possibly see are maybe the Hulk, possibly. But what I'd like to see going forward, I would love to see more of Captain Marvel. Personally, more Doctor Strange. Honestly, I don't know if I'd like to see Rhodey take up the mantle of Iron Man and continue forward as Iron Man, but we'll see. I'm not at all excited about Jane Foster as Thor. That's just another discussion for another video. But a lot of the characters that showed up, I think, are going to that played a background role in this movie or the previous movie, are going to have bigger parts to come, or I would like to see them have bigger parts to come. I'd like to see them take over bigger roles in the future in Phase 4, Phase 5. But that's another discussion for another video when I get my thoughts more together about that. This is just mainly a quick review video and my thoughts on what I saw. So, overall, great fucking job to the Russo brothers. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to start rewatch immediately. I think I'm going to start with Iron Man 1 and start all over. And watch it in its entirety from the get-go. To watch it in a complete package. But, anyway, that's my review. My first review that's going to be posted up on both my YouTube and my Facebook channel. So, I hope you enjoyed this rambling. But, anyway, I got nothing else for now. I may do a deep analysis on it later. I don't know. But for right now, this is all I'm going to do of Infinity War, of Endgame. But I will do more reviews in the future when and if I feel like it. But for now, thank you and peace out.